I was not a little astonished when, a few days later, I was handed a letter from Pan Wiadomski. Written in a lofty, severe style, it stated that, although I had behaved toward him in a manner which could only be expected from a member of my race and had filched his secret from him, he was nevertheless prepared to act toward me as a Christian and to forgive me. He therefore asked me to come to his apartment, as he needed me for an important purpose. I naturally sent no answer. A few days later, a second missive arrived, very different in content as well as in style. There was no mention this time either of filching or of forgiveness. In fact, the whole incident was ignored. Instead, he addressed me in a tone which was downright sentimental. I was surprised and, I must confess, touched. He stated frankly that he had become accustomed to me, and that our meetings had become a necessity to him, both on personal grounds and for reasons related to his scientific work. The exchange of ideas between us had been particularly useful to him, in that they had served to refresh his memory. He therefore begged me to renew my visits. He closed the letter with the complimentary observation that I had proved to him the truth of the old proverb, "There is no rule without its exceptions." Indeed, he added, the very exception proves the existence of the rule. The lower the general level of a community, the finer and higher are the individual exceptions. I need hardly say that this letter, too, remained unanswered. Then, early one morning, when dimmest twilight still reigned in my room, the snow which had fallen in the night covered my skylight window completely, I was astounded and terrified to hear footsteps on the narrow stairs, heavy, stumbling, dragging steps accompanied by a thin, racking cough. The stairs led to one door only, mine, on the top floor of a wooden house in the heart of the Jewish quarter. I could not think of a living soul who would be seeking me out at that hour. In any case, the uncertain steps and the tubercular cough recalled no one of my acquaintance. Breathless, I remained in my bed, for my room was exposed on every side to the wind, which penetrated the wooden walls, and it was too cold to get up. I lay waiting, and racked my brains in a vain effort to guess who might be approaching. Finally, there came a knocking at the door. I recognized the voice which answered to my query as that of Pan Wiadomski. I begged him to wait a moment until I could restore a little order in the room. I did this very hastily, and when I opened there fell into my arms an old man, frozen almost to death. I half carried, half dragged him over to my own chair, which stood by the stove. I thrust paper and faggots into the stove and lit a fire. Icicles hung from his wet moustaches, and from the tattered and mangy fox-skin coat in which he was wrapped. He sat there, a broken old man, his eyes red and swollen, as if he had not slept for several nights. His bluish, bony fingers trembled as he held a handkerchief to his lips in an effort to keep back his coughs, and the sunken cheeks expanded and fell as the breath came and went. "What is it, Pan Wiadomski?" I asked, deeply perturbed by his appearance. "What brings you out in such weather?" "I came out in such weather because you would not come to me, and we have to see each other. I have to see you," he corrected himself. "I have something very important to talk over with you. Pan Wiadomski, move closer to the stove. You're shivering. You're ill." "I am not ill, and I have come to you in order to talk with you concerning that matter." "We will talk later. Calm yourself. I will put the kettle on. You will freeze." And as he had left his place by the stove, I led him back and forced him to sit down before I filled the kettle. "I did not come to drink tea with you. I have come to discuss with you a matter which is of the utmost importance for both of us. If you have come here to talk about that matter, I want to assure you again that what you told me that evening has long since passed out of my memory. I know that gifted men with rich and active imaginations are subject to visions, sometimes in sleep, sometimes in their waking moments, but that is in no way a reflection on your person. I beg you to give up once and for all the idea that I am the guardian of your secret. There is no secret involved. It was a passing visitation or chimera which I have completely forgotten." Preparing a glass of tea for him, I used every device at my command to reassure him. But when I held out the cup and saucer to him, he thrust them angrily away. "I am not suffering from sick delusions, and you are not a doctor to offer me advice. This matter is much more serious than you seem to suppose. That which I told you the other evening is not the product of a diseased imagination. Do you know who I am? Do you know who sits here before you? I am the man who, under orders from Pontius Pilate, my superior officer, and according to sentence passed by the high priest in Jerusalem, directed the execution of that mysterious personality whose nature has remained unexplained down to our own day." "What are you talking about? Whom do you mean by that mysterious personality?" I stood aghast, and my hands must have trembled, for I could feel the hot water pouring over them from the saucer. "If you insist on knowing the name, I will pronounce it. Yeshua of Nazareth, he who is called Jesus Christ." "But in God's name, what are you trying to tell me, Pan Wiadomski?" "Do not call me back into this miserable world. Leave me in the world to which I belong." "But for God's sake, what are you telling me?" And not only did I direct his execution, but I tortured and insulted him before his death. I am the man who played the spy against him, and I bear the chief guilt for his death, I and no other. Pan Wiadomski, you are ill. Come, I will lay you on my bed. You must calm yourself. I killed him, and I kill him again every day of my life. I kill him again and again in the long sleepless nights. I stood benumbed. A little time passed, and Pan Wiadomski seemed to revive. He fetched a deep sigh, as if a fearful load had been lifted from his heart.